This is the walk we're doing, and the last time we approached this walk, we had just finished the base keys. So essentially, just getting our main poses in here. Let's hit play. And that's about it. We're still in step mode. We just got our keys in here. Now, how's the walk feeling? Overall, it's okay. Like, if I was to grade myself on this, I would say it's like, meh. It's not the greatest. Now, why? Why isn't it working too well? This is actually something with animation that we have to be able to do. And this is where giving feedback to other people is very important, because this is where you're going to learn to be able to also give feedback to yourself. It's always harder to give feedback to yourself, but as an animator, we have to do it. So as I'm looking at this here, what am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling a few different things. One is the biggest thing is I feel like the arms, they're just kind of feeling robotic. I don't feel like there's this nice big arm pump and hurry through here. It just kind of feels linear and boring. That's definitely a big thing. I feel like the feet kind of feel snappy. It's still in step mode, so I can't fix that 100% just yet, but it's something I'm going to watch out for when I go into splines. Is I feel like I could push the arc of the feet a little bit more, especially right here on the passing pose. I almost feel like I can hold that foot a little longer back. And let me turn off. There we go. So right here on the passing pose, I almost feel like that could be held back a little bit. I feel like the body is twisting a little too much. So if I look at it from the front view here and just watch the tie, there's a lot of motion there in that chest. Is that too much? Maybe. When we go into splines, we'll see if we can maybe tone it down so it doesn't feel like you're just kind of swinging its chest around. What else from the front view? I'm getting a nice arc in the foot, so yay, I've got that. It's moving through. And we're getting that contact, but the contact pose is flat. The contact should land on the outer edge of the heel. So I definitely want to push that a little bit more. What else? I feel like the head doesn't quite match the body motions, especially for the side-to-side motion. It feels a little too stiff. So I might want to increase that rotation in there. Let's see. Anything else? So once again, I'm essentially just giving myself a critique right here. And I do this on every single animation that I ever do. I just look at the shot and then give myself feedback, just like I do with everyone in the dailies and giving feedback on the streams. Critique yourself. And the way you learn that skill is by critiquing others. So those are kind of the main notes. I also feel like maybe the head is a little too... It kind of feels flat. He's got this very flat top to his head here. And it kind of feels perfectly parallel to the ground. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something I want to watch out for. I also feel like from the front view, the hips might be moving a little bit too much in rotate Z, this motion. So I might want to tone that down a little bit. Now this is all stuff that I would write down. Don't just say it like I'm doing here. I'm doing this for like speed's sake, but write it down. I've got a notepad right here, right there, which is basically my notepad of all the different things on my shots that I will work on. And I've just got a pencil and I'll write everything down. And I've like filled this up. Like sometimes when I'm working on a shot, I would have filled this up like 2 columns, every line filled. So that's like almost 100. I think the biggest list I had was like 80 different things on a shot. That's like, okay, I want to fix this. And you just write them all down. And then what I would do is number them. Number them in the order that you want to fix them. That way, you're not just approaching this list randomly. You're going in very specifically. I'm going to fix the hips. then I'm going to fix the feet, then I'm going to fix the arms, then the body. No, that doesn't work. I need to fix the body first, then the arms. It lets me make sure I don't do work only to have to redo it later, and gives me a checklist. Once I finish the item on the list, I don't cross it off right away. I just kind of put a little mark beside it showing that I'm done. And then I keep going. Something you don't want to do in animation is fall into the trap of noodling. Noodling would be something like, I fixed the hips. And it's like, okay, make a few small tweaks. Does it look better? Play blast. Okay, not quite right. Fix the hips. Play blast again. Not quite right. Play blast. I'm spending so much time on the hips that I'm not getting anywhere. And one of the things with animation in any art form is if you stay on one thing too long, you stop seeing it. You stop being able to properly process the information you're looking at. So it is actually a better workflow to just work fairly quickly on something and then move on. And then come back later when your eyes are refreshed and you can see what's really wrong with it. So what I will do is I will take my list. It's full of items. I number them all. I approach almost every item that I can. Go through the whole list. Once I've got to everything that I can at the time, there might be some items that I will save for later. They're too important or like they're secondary, like maybe add hair overlap. That's not going to be done until the body's done. I do everything I can. At that point, I will play blast and do a proper check over. And I'll look at my list and go, okay, did I fix the hips? Check. Did I fix the body? Check. Did I fix the arms? Nah, they don't look good. Put another mark on that. I need to revisit this. Go through the list again. From there, I've got everything checked off. I've got some things that stayed on the list. I also look at anything new that stands out. Put that on the list, renumber everything. And I do that over and over and over until I have a final shot. And this gives me something to work on. That's the very important thing. Animation, there's so much we can do. Like this is just a walk. It's only like a 19 frame cycle. And we have feet, we have knees, we have hips, we have body, we have hands, we have fingers, we have like face. We have so many different things that we need to work on. If you're just kind of jumping in and I got to work on something, you're going to be bouncing around and never finishing anything. A list is super, super helpful. So another tangent. One day we're going to get into the animation part. Let's see. Starting to look good. I can't get the Darius rig. Great pointer. I just saw Mike Gasaway's noodling video talking about this. You need to watch it as an audience. Hit list. Yeah, Mike Gasaway's video is really good on that. So let's take a look at Darius here and start refining the work. Now, at this point in my walk, I could refine my key poses, but there's nothing glaringly wrong right now. So instead of trying to work on all the key poses and nothing else, I might as well go into splines right away and start fixing everything together. If I'm going to fix the hips right now, because there's nothing like hugely wrong, I can just go into splines and spline the hips and fix them at the same time. I don't have to do this separately because when I go into spline, there's going to be a whole mess of other things that I'm going to have to fix here. So I'm going to take my shot here and I'm going to go into splines. So essentially going into splines, for anyone who's not sure what that term actually means, is essentially going in and just setting your key so Maya puts in-betweens for you. So right now we're in step mode, so it's only playing the keys I put in. If we go into splines, which is in this case setting it to auto tangents, now Maya is putting those in-betweens for us. And we now have this for our walk. And let's see how it feels. Overall, not terrible, but definitely worse than before. We've got some very sharp knee pops. The feet feel kind of weird. The arms definitely have some weirdness going on in there. This is normal. When you go into splines, things are going to start feeling a little off. That's because Maya is now starting to put in a lot of keys in here, and a lot of those keys are incorrect. So we need technically I shouldn't say keys, they're putting in-betweens in. So they're filling the animation between our keys. And we need to go in there and make sure that Maya is doing it correctly. Any program, whether it's Maya, whether it's Toon Boom, whether it's like Blender, they're not animators. They will put motion, but motion is not animation. Motion is not a character. Motion is just moving. And moving can sometimes look good. Other times it looks horrible. We want to create animation. We want to create a visual design in motion. So that's what we're going to be doing next. Now, when I go into splines, usually the first things I look at are the hips and the feet. Now, there's a few different ways you can look at this. I can look at it on the whole rig here, which works, but the problem with that is I don't want to focus on the upper body just yet. I just want to make sure that my hips and my feet are working before anything else. If I can get those working, there's no obviously huge glaring errors in the body, so I really don't need to focus on this. But sometimes you're going to be working on a rig where you can't really hide body parts. Like this rig, I've got a high res, a low res, and that's it. There's no proxy mode. There's no way to turn off the arms and legs. How can I focus on just the legs and the hips right here? The feet, legs, hips. Well, in Maya, what you can do is I'm going to make sure I can select the body of the character. So turn that on here, body selectable. And I'm going to go in, let's do it in here. My perspective view is going to be easier to tumble around. I'm just going to select the hips and the feet right here. Or technically, let's just select the whole body. We'll do that. So I'm going to select the whole body. And then on the keyboard, I'm going to hit F11. So very top row of keys, F11. What that does is it sets your selection into face mode for everything that you had selected. So now I can select the faces of this character. I'm going to select the lower half right here. So let's select right around there. I'm going to refine my selection here. Let's see, let's turn off cache playback. Make that hopefully run a little faster. Oops. So to select an edge loop here, what I'm doing is I'm clicking on one face. So I'm holding down shift, clicking, and then double clicking on the face next to it. And that's going to select the whole loop around. If my computer wants to play nice with me. Okay, doesn't want to play nice. So I'm just going to select the old-fashioned way. There we go. Okay, so I've selected all the faces down here, this lower half. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Show, Isolate, Select, and I'm just going to tear off this menu by hitting the dotted lines. This just makes it a separate little window here. And I'm just going to hit View Selected, like that. Now, what Maya is going to do is turn off everything except for my selection. I can now take this selection, go to Bookmarks, and I'm going to bookmark the current objects. And I'm just going to call this Legs, right here. There we go. We have our bookmark. Now, I can watch this animation, and I've just got the legs right there. Now, from the perspective view, I do want to make sure I can see all my control curves and everything. So I'm going to turn off Isolate Select. That's this button right here. Or you can hit View Selected, turn that off right there. So we've got that. So I created my selection and my bookmark. Now I can go in my front and side views, go to Show, Isolate, Select. Let's go to Bookmarks, select my legs, go to View Selected right there. Same thing here. Bookmarks, legs, Show, Isolate, View Selected. There we go. Now, I've just got the legs. So for those of you in class 1, look at that. I've got a Bali assignment. It's the same thing. So right there, I managed to set a key on something. See how his arm goes across. Oh, wait. Yeah, right there. Something's going on here. Got some random keys right near the end. So let me fix my cycle right here. Turn off geo selection. Don't need that anymore. Delete these. Oop. There we go. Okay. So with that, we now have our shot. And now let me double check this. You selected. There we go. Sometimes you just need to toggle this back on and off to see things. And let me zoom in here. Get a little bit closer. Normally I would use multiple monitors so I could see more detail. So with this, let's start going through here. So I'm going to focus on the feet first. The reason I like to focus on the feet is because feet need more attention when we are animating a walk. If we're just kind of going straight in, Maya is going to put a lot of keys that just don't work properly. So a good example of this here is on the contact poses. This contact, we have the contact pose here, and it's taking 2 frames and just kind of eases in really gently. For a lot of walks, the next pose right after the contact is the flat foot position. The foot is just perfectly flat like that, and then it just stays flat. So we get this motion here. There we go. Now for this walk, I'm going to have that ease a little bit. So I don't want to go perfectly flat, but I definitely want to bring it down a little bit more. And then on the next frame, then it's perfectly flat right there. So we just refine that a little bit more. The other thing that I want to do is, like I was talking about earlier, when the foot contacts, I want to contact this a little bit on the side. So let's take my side control here and have that foot out at an angle like this. Next frame, it's going to be flat, like so. And now we get this kind of rolling motion. And I can maybe put just a little bit of an angle there. Something like that. We get a nice subtle rolling motion right on that contact there. Now, there's even more stuff we can do to polish, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just doing a quick pass on the feet to make sure they work. So let's do the next contact here. Super quick. So contact. Let's move this to the side a little bit. So contact. Then down here. And then it'll be flat. So I'm going to lower the side motion here and maybe push the foot roll down a little bit. Something like that. I think the foot roll right here is a little high. I'm going to lower that overall. Okay, so we've got that. Now, does this once again mean the feet are perfect? No, this is just making sure that my spacing is correct. The next thing to watch out for is the foot pushing off of the ground. So as the foot pushes off of the ground here, one of the big things I want to do is make sure that the spacing of the heel is nice and arcing right through here. So let me create an editable motion trail right there. So this is the arc of the heel right now. Let's make the color a little different so we can see that more clearly. So right there. And I'm going to change the motion trail here to be alternating frames. That way we can see the spacing of the heel there. And as it's going up, what we want to do is make sure that that heel doesn't pop too much. It should ease out from the bottom here and then kind of continue in a nice, like, ease out faster, faster, faster. So here I'm getting kind of a snap right there. And let me double check here. Frame 1. Okay. Okay, cool. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my foot roll and make sure that that has that nice ease out here. But then at the top here, I want that to go fast right here. So it's going slow, faster, faster, faster right through here. So I'm increasing that speed. Then as he pushes off the ground here, now the foot is in the air. Now I have a choice. I could either push the foot so that it pushes further up in the air and raises up, or I could keep the foot longer on the ground for one more frame. And I think in this case, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this foot on frame 3, copy it to frame 4 by middle mouse dragging. And then I'm just going to push my foot roll and adjust my toe brake to get the toe to push off the ground here. Like that. See how we're starting to push that across there? And now we're getting that push off of the toes before he raises his foot right there. So I could do something like that. And then I was mentioning how the passing pose, I feel like this could be a little further back. Let's do that. So we're starting to push that. My arc here is flattening out right there. So I'm going to play with my toe brake and foot roll to see if I can exaggerate that roundness there. So something like that. Then it comes up there. Okay. So I'm just looking at my arc here. I feel like this went a little too high now. I'm just going to lower it back down. Now, this is another point where if you're doing this kind of drawing, it's like with arcs like this, I can see that there's this little bump here. I can't get rid of it. How do I make that work? Well, for me personally, I'm going to draw it out. I could just kind of keep adjusting this arc, trying to get it exactly where I want. But honestly, just use the grease pencil tool. I'm using the blue pencil plugin. You can just use my grease pencil tool. It's the same thing. And let's create my layer manager right here, wherever it went. It's on another monitor somewhere. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just going to draw this out. If we've got a dot here, here, and here, and this one here, that's not great spacing. I want that nice ease out right there. If I was to draw this out myself, where would I put it? So I would have here, here, maybe, let's kind of go back. So there, there, goes forward. So maybe here. The next pose would be maybe there, maybe a little further out. So I'm just looking at my arc, kind of imagining that arc there and putting my spacing in here. Something like that. Okay. So now I can just track that arc. Let's turn on ghosting here. I can track this and just make sure that on this frame, that foot is where I want it to be. I'm going to take my foot roll, push it up, double check a little further forward. So something like that. There we go. I got it exactly where I want. Done. And then maybe right here, I'm going to raise this up just a little bit. So it's starting to push off the toes just to round that out even more. So by just drawing out the arc, I'm done. I don't have to try and like wiggle it back and forth and go, oh, is it almost there? Is it not? Is it almost? Just draw it out, place it where you want it, and then, nice clean arc. Okay. So it comes forward here, swings through. We can refine a lot of this later on, but for now, we're just going to go through. And it's all of the same principles that I've mentioned in a lot of Q&As before. If you've been in my classes, you know, push the arc of the foot. As it comes down here, you want to push that arc downwards so the foot swings and swoops down. So like right here, that foot would be much lower to the ground there. Let's look at that translate Y curve right there. Comes through. How close is his foot to the ground? It could come down lower here. I want it low enough that his leg is kind of brushing the ground, but not so low that it's stretching that leg. So we get that nice swooping motion right in there. Now right here, his leg is overstretching right here. So let's actually raise it up a bit. So we get that nice little swoop down. Whoop, down. Right there. Just like that. So I feel like that's pretty good for now. Okay, and then we've got the contact. So there we have our first step. Now I also want to look at this from the front view to make sure I'm getting the arcs in correct. And I could look at this from my straight front view here as well if I want to. So let's look at that. Watch that foot. So as it goes through, it pushes up. And right now it's kind of pushing up straight. When we push off of the foot, we tend to push off of our big toe. So as the foot is going up here, I could add maybe a little toe twist right here. So let's see. Goes up. The moment it starts to raise up, I'm going to add a little toe twist and maybe a, let's see, side to side. No, not side to side. Yeah, we'll go with toe twist for now. And then a little bit more right here. Toe twist, toe twist. There we go. And a little bit of, I guess side to side is what I'm looking for. Not really. I want like a spin from the tip of the toe. For now, I might just use it with side to side. If I can't find the attribute I want, so I want to kind of push it off to the angle here, I can just rotate the foot. Nothing's stopping me from just rotating it manually, getting the angle I want. Kind of a concept that I always kind of think about when I'm working in animation is if I don't have a control to do it, if I don't have a super clear way of doing something, I just put it where I want it to be and set a key. Done. Put it there, set a key, voila. As long as you're not counter animating and getting like a whole mess of keys for no reason, there's nothing wrong with that. So we're going out, out, out to the side, but then it stops right here, just kind of stops dead. Let's look at my translate Y of the foot and aha, that definitely will cause it. Let's round that arc out a little bit and then ease in right here. So I'm putting an overshoot there. So sometimes I'll just go into the graph editor and tweak my arcs. And now look at that. Beautiful. Oop. There we go. Motion there. Now we're getting a little bit of a wiggle here. Ooh, what's going on? Well, essentially what's happening is it's switching from the translations here. And then it's just kind of locking out and then using that side to side roll that we added in. So all I need to do is nudge this over here so that once again, I put the key where I need it to be. If it's going to come in and land here with a side roll, the frame before, I wanted it a little bit further out. So I'm just going to nudge that back and then clean up my curve right here, whoop, to make that nice and clean. So now it comes out, whoop, done. Just put the foot where I want it to be and call it a day. Now I also feel like I could add a little bit more rotation to the foot here. So as it contacts right there, I'm actually going to take my rotate Y curve. That's translate Y, rotate Y, and nudge it out a little bit right here. So it lands at more of an angle. And then as he steps down, his foot straightens out here. Maybe a little bit more. So we get that nice roll. So he's not landing and his foot just kind of straight up and down. There's this kind of roll and extra rotation in there. We're starting to refine this and polish this. I don't have to do this all right now, but I can while I'm here. So right there. And you can see how different that is from that foot, which now has a weird angle to it for some reason. Something in the cycle isn't looping correctly. Let's see. Okay, the other foot's working fine. So there we go. We've got that nice rotation and push off. With that, that foot's pretty much done at this point. Now this is, again, the preliminary, just making sure things are working. And usually, like, I'm explaining the whole process here. This would take a few minutes. Like, it doesn't take long at all. As I'm working here, it's just going to take a little longer because I'm trying to talk through every element of it. So I'm going to create an editable motion trail on the other foot, and then I'll answer some questions right after. So usually editable motion trail, I like to put it to alternating frames. That way I can see the spacing. Alternatively, you can set it to like past future, so you can see what's before, what's after this point. And then turn on, where is it? I usually do this in the attribute editor. Turn on like frame crosses. Let's make those a little bit smaller. So you can see those, or you could turn on frame numbers. So you can see the frame numbers there. You can also change the color here if you find it's like too dark. Maybe we'll turn that into like just a bright green or something like that. If you feel like it's too thin, you can make the trail a little thicker right there. So now it's just a little easier to see. But like I said, I like alternating frames personally. Okay, so same thing here. See how we're getting that slowdown right there? I don't know how clear it is coming on the video here. There. That's slower than the frame before it. I don't want that. That's going to create a little weird hitch in there. So I'm going to look at my foot roll here. That foot roll should just constantly increase. Whoop, like that. Slow, fast, fast, fast. There we go. The next thing is that on this frame, I want to create that push off of the toes. Maya is raising this foot too soon. So this is a common thing you'll see with lots of walks, is that frame just after the push off, the foot just kind of pushes off and flies away. It's almost like it's pulled up by a UFO, just like tractor beamed up into the sky. We don't want that. I want to keep rolling this up and getting the toes to push off the ground first. So we get that nice little push, the toes push off there, and then speed up away. So something like this. And then once it's in the air, I'm just going to pull this foot back a little bit. Just have a little bit more hang time back here. This is something I really like to try and do in my shots, is add hang time and exaggerate the spacing. So I have tighter spacing over here, faster spacing in the middle. It makes the feet feel more dynamic. Okay, so that push off is pretty good here. Now, one thing I didn't look for in the last one that I should have is the rotation here. It needs to be rotated down a little bit more so it doesn't snap back up. I'll have to look at that on the next one as well. But let's get the sweep in here. So we've got our contact pose there. Frame before the contact pose should be up. Whoop, a little higher. So you get that up, whoop, down. Right there. I feel like this foot roll could be just a tiny bit higher so we get a tiny bend in that knee. Okay. Let's get the swoop in of the foot right there. This is too high. So we're going to bring this down. I am a very big fan of getting the feet to be as low as I can. If I have to scrape the ground to do it, I will. We're very lazy creatures, so our feet don't really go up that much. Now here, the foot's not acting correctly. And I believe is because I don't have infinity cycles turned on right now for this foot. For some reason, it got turned off. Or let's see, view, infinity, okay. So if you're looking at your infinity curves, you want to make sure that nothing is going like, you see here how this curve is going down, 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 down. That tells me that there's something wrong. There should just be that forward translation that goes forward, up, 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 up as it keeps going forward. But the other rotation, so I have to find it here. Some attribute here is offset right there, foot roll. Why is it offset? Well, my first key and last key don't match. That key right at the beginning here and then frame 19 aren't exactly the same. So I want to take this foot. I'm going to copy everything to the last key except for my translate Z, because that kind of stays this, or we want to keep going forward. And you can see the foot roll and the side keys are not working correctly. I'm just going to key selected right there. And voila. Now I've got that nice perfect cycle. So I just copied those. How do you know when to use rotate versus foot roll? So foot roll is whenever the foot is touching the ground. Rotates are whenever the foot is in the air and not touching the ground. That's the main criteria. There are moments where I'll mix a little bit of the two, but for very specific reasons. Generally, it's foot roll on the ground, rotations in the air. Now, how many years did it take until your animation started to feel good? That's a tricky question because honestly, I still don't think my animations feel good. I have a lot of, what would be the right word? I guess you could say negativity around my own work, which I'm still fighting with. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to be better at not like being hard on myself, but that's just me being a perfectionist. I always feel like there's something that could be improved and be made better. Now, like if I broaden that question to how many years did it take until I felt comfortable animating, or I felt like I wasn't failing completely, I would say it took me at least a good year before I started finding a really comfortable workflow. This leg is just a little too stretched here on frame 20. I'm going to bring this foot roll back up here. There we go. So we've got that in place. Now I want to push that forward view of the foot. So we got the side view pretty much done. We've got that nice roll of the foot here. As it steps out, we need to push our translate X. So right now it's going to go forward and then it's just going to start to cut across too much. I'm also starting to cut through the ground, so I'm going to push my translate Y up a bit. Just a little bit here. Round out that arc. Right through there. Make a nice big swing in there. Okay. Side view. Translate X. I know that the contact was kind of giving me trouble before. So I'm going to go to the frame before the contact. And make sure that this is where I want it to be. So there is our contact. Frame before. I'm just going to set a key right there where I want it. And then take my translate X. And let's do that nice overshoot there that we had before. So something like this. So comes in, round, nice big arc, contact right there. Now I also want to add some rotation here. So as the character pushes off the ground, I wanted to add, what did I add? Toe twist? Yeah. So actually I wonder if I should add ball twist. Yeah. Ball twist isn't really what I want here. Because I want the toes to slip. Okay. So I'll just add a little bit of that. And just a little less. Then as his foot comes up here, I'm just going to rotate that foot back this way. Now that's a little too much, but I can always tone it down later. That's a toe twist right here. And let's just take this, scale it down. Now, if you're using something like Animbot, you can do this even faster. But for this demo, I'm not going to use Animbot. I just want to show what you can do with the base tools and how you can approach it without having to have exterior plugins. Okay. So with that, we've pretty much got the feet refined. Are they perfect? Nope, not at all. Is that a problem? Nope, not at all. Because essentially what I'm aiming for right now is just clarity and making sure that the feet are not broken in some weird way. So let's just hit play and see what we've got here. So how do the feet feel? Definitely much better. You can see after that quick little motion, now the feet feel much more stable. The knees aren't popping quite as much. There's still definitely a knee pop in there. You can kind of feel it right. Let's turn off the cache playback. Right here. The knee straightens out a little too much there too quickly. So I might want to adjust that ever so slightly. You can kind of see it here as well. The knee pops forward and stops and actually moves back a little bit. So I would want to adjust this right through there. But I'm not going to do that yet because the knee is going to be very dependent on what the hips are doing. So if I don't have the hips working correctly, it doesn't matter what's happening with the knees because something might change dramatically when I start adjusting those hips. Okay. I'm just going to tone down that side-to-side motion here. I feel like it's just a little too much. It's getting a little extreme. I want it in there, but I don't want to make it feel like he's kind of swinging his feet out from side to side. So maybe a little bit more like that. So we get something like this. Okay. So we've got that. Let's go to the hips. Now, the way I'm animating the hips on this character is I have the cog here moving him forward. It's also moving him side to side. Translate X. Translate Z, that's our forward motion. It's also bumping him up and down. The rotations, all I'm doing is rotating him forward. So he's just leaning forward and he's doing this kind of little bit of a nod there. The other rotations are coming from the hip control here. That way I can control the hips separately from the spine, and I'm not dealing with counter rotation. This is just one way of doing it. There's many, many ways of doing that. Let's see. I have trouble with knowing how fast the cog should be moving forward. Usually, and this is kind of a generalization because walks can be very different depending on if they're a skip, if they're a stomp, if they're a march, if they're a run. Like that forward motion, there's so many variations. But the thing that I will often do is I look at my passing poses. So here's my passing pose right here. The passing pose should typically be leaning forward, and that supporting leg should be straight, usually. So I get that pose to be exactly how I want it. Then I go to my next passing pose, which is here. I get that to be exactly how I want it. Supporting leg slightly leaning forward, pretty much straight for most walks. From there, you take your look at your Translate Z. So that's going to be frame 14 here and frame 5 right there. And you create a straight line between those and across all of that. That gives you your general forward motion. From there, you can take your other keys and adjust them so that they kind of flow, and there's going to be a small variation. We are not robots. We do not move in a perfectly linear line. So we can start cleaning that up in that way. Now, one thing that we will always do when we're doing cleanup here is we need to adjust the first and last keys on a lot of these curves. Auto tangents will automatically flatten the first and last keys, and it creates this kind of default ease in, ease out, which if you're not careful, you will notice, where the characters always kind of, they start the shot and there's kind of this slow motion, then they move, and then at the end of the shot, they kind of move, slow down. That's because auto tangents, let me show this again, set this to auto. That first and last key, those tangents are flat. And it creates this weird like hitch in the cycle. You can kind of see it right here. Bip, right there. So by adjusting the keys and adjusting those tangents, I smooth that cycle out. This is a very important step here. You do not want to skip this for any cycle. Okay. So now we get a much cleaner cycle through here. Just with that. And somehow I've got those keys back again. Weird. Here on frame 22 this time. Let me try something. Interesting. Okay. Okay, cool. So, we've got the leg walking there, the hips. That forward translation, I feel like there's a little bit of a hitch in here. Something is feeling a little slow. Right around here. So I'll look at my graph editor. This is where, if you have a graph editor in another window, it's very nice because you can just put it full screen and see like a lot of detail. But I'm just going to look at this, and the area that I feel is running slow is right here, how this curve is flattening out. So I know I don't really want to change my passing pose right here. I could maybe pull it back a little bit if I wanted to, but just a tiny bit. Because I don't want to compromise the integrity of that pose. So what I can do instead is try to make the spacing around that just a little bit more dynamic. Contact right here. So I'm going to try to avoid this kind of plateauing for so long here. And it's going to be small motions. Smooth that out just a little bit. Then I always double check how does that feel in my shot. Now, overall, I feel like I could push the contacts there and there just a little higher, or sorry, a little bit more forward. That's going to be those two and that one. If I bring these up a little bit more, I'm going to flatten out that curve quite a bit, which is good because it evens things out. The main issue, though, is that I will also start to cause a pop in the knee where the contact pose is now straight right there. So I have to fix this. How do we fix this? Well, I can go into my translate Y, take my contacts there. I'm going to raise them up so that leg is just a little higher there. And then the back leg is now going to be too straight there. So I can just take my foot roll right there and raise that up a little bit. Right there, and then right here, and make sure I get that nice ease there. So raise that up to get that nice bend in there. So this is why you don't want to polish your stuff just yet, because we're going to still be making a lot of big changes. I'm readjusting the feet as we go here. Now let's look at the walk, make sure we didn't lose our integrity of anything here. Overall, not bad. I definitely lost a little bit of the up and down on the walk, which for a hurried walk is not bad because we don't want to do this as he's kind of following. We want to really get that kind of in control motion. Every step is very quick. Now, this doesn't mean that we want to take out that translate Y completely, but it's okay if we tone it down a little. Now, something I always like to do is go through my curves and just try to exaggerate them a little bit. So you can see how this is kind of linear right here. I'm just going to push this to be more dynamic. A little bit more of a hold and then comes down. And this is just in general, it makes the animation feel more fun to look at. So it comes up. I might even like take certain curves and just kind of add an overshoot like that. So it goes a little higher and then comes down just to see how that feels. Now it comes down here. Maybe this is going to be a little lower right there. Once again, trying to avoid any linear curves if I can. And then let's add a little overshoot right here. Now, another thing that I should be doing, just to show things visually, is I'm going to take all my keys here, or all my curves, I should say, and I'm just going to buffer all of the curves. This saves a copy into the memory, and that way I can also compare what things are happening. So we got the translate Y there. Translate X is the side-to-side motion. You can definitely see the cycle is not working super great here. We're getting this really weird hitch there. So very quickly, go through, clean that up. Now we get a much cleaner cycle. From there, let's look at the side-to-side motion. And if I want to, I can focus just on the side-to-side right here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Side-to-side right here. And let's just kind of watch this without the rest. So right there, I'm trying to block my view of everything else and just focus on the side to side. How is that feeling? And right now what I'm feeling is it almost hits a wall on the right side. So on this right side over here, it hits a wall and I can kind of see it right there. It's flat right here. So maybe I'm just going to round that out just a little bit right here. Now, you can round it out in different ways. I could move this key down. I could move the other key up. I can create a little overshoot. Every way is fine as long as you're doing it with a purpose. When you're animating, one of the key things is that you're not just moving things randomly. You are thinking, like, how can I make this be more interesting? For me, it's how can I make this feel like that weight shift is more dynamic? So for example, here, from this key to this key to this key, if I look at this and set this to linear mode, it's just a straight line. That key is right in the center between these other two keys. I'm not a fan of that personally. So I like to try and exaggerate something like this. And this is something I'll do a lot is sometimes I'll just set a curve to linear. And if I see that there's a key just straight in the middle here, whoop, like that. Now I've exaggerated that curve. Same thing here, whoop, just a little bit more. From there, I can go back to auto tangents and fix that first and last key. And it just helps me see where things are maybe not working quite how I want it to be. So something like that. See, is it bad to use extra keys instead of the tangent handles? Definitely not. Extra keys is actually preferred in a lot of ways because it locks what you've done in. Like let's do a big overshoot here. Let's say I have this in my curve. Beautiful. That's exactly what I want. And then I do exactly what I did before. I'll take my keys, go to linear, go, okay, that's pretty good. Auto tangents. I've just lost that whole curve that I did. Instead, if I'm going to shape this, especially if I'm going to do any major shaping, what I will want to do next is use the insert key tool in Maya. So that's holding down the I key and middle mouse clicking to add a key right there. And I'll usually add that to the peak that I've added. And this way, if I suddenly accidentally change a curve, it's all set already. And I just hit a hotkey. I don't know what's going to happen. Don't crash. Something is locked here. The joy of accidentally hitting a hotkey that you have no idea what it was set to. Okay. Come on, Maya. Something is locked here. Okay. Okay, is this working? Okay, that's working. Yeah, the what did I do? Or if you have a cat, the what did the cat step on? So right now it looks like the right click or one of the control buttons is locked. Okay. Okay, good. I don't have anything happening here. Hard beating for 1 frame. Haven't saved it. Work in 30 minutes. Yeah. And the problem is I can't save right now. The save hotkey won't work. Oh wait, there you go. Okay, save worked. Phew. So worst case scenario, I can close this off and then I'm good. Now, if this happens, just in general, I've just locked Maya somehow. One of the hotkeys I pressed on my keyboard, it's got like a master hotkey list on the left side. I accidentally my finger hit it by accident. What do? I don't want to close Maya because what if this file didn't actually save? Then I'm in trouble. If I close this off, that's gone. So I'm actually just going to open up a second copy of Maya right here. So I have to Alt Tab here to make sure I switch programs, and then open up another copy of Maya. And then I'm going to reopen the file and double check that everything's there. If it's there, I'm good. I can close the other corrupted instance that's kind of acting out. If it's not, I still have my chance to save the file. So we just want to make sure that we're never doing something where we lose work. We want to save often, which I don't usually do on stream because I get too distracted just talking. But yeah, we want to work smart. And there's a question here. Did I work in step mode to make the poses? I work in splined. So when I did that pass, I actually animated in splined first. Then I went back to stepped just to kind of get an idea of what it looked like. And then I went back into splines. That's my typical workflow. So yeah. Let's see. So let's open this up here. I want my hurried walk. Shouldn't take too long to open. And if anyone has questions, definitely feel free to ask. That's what these streams are all about. So if you have questions, just ask away. What about setting autosave? I personally don't set up autosave, mostly because I do a lot of demos, like for students and stuff. And when I'm doing a demo, or especially when I'm recording a demo, having that autosave come up kind of messes up my recordings. So I highly recommend, if you don't set it up, set it up. It's very good. It will save you a lot of time. For my specific setup and what I tend to do, unfortunately, more often than not, it's kind of a pain. So I just work without it. And normally I'm actually pretty good at remembering to save. It's usually when I'm actually like mid-talk, mid-demo that I blank out on it. Okay, so we were working on our hips, specifically the Translate X. And now you'll notice my channel box is gone on the left side. You see these little dotted lines here? Not channel box, outliner. If I pull this, there it is. Right there. If ever you lose these channels right here, it's just being collapsed to the side there. So just pull that and you'll be fine. It's the same with your display layers right here. If you pull it all the way down, you can actually hide that. You just pull that dotted line, bring it back up. Any tips for making arms feel less IK? IK feelings are when the arms are moving. There's two things, kind of linearly and disconnected from the body. So the ways we make it feel less IK is we move it in arcs, because everything moves in an arc. The moment that an arm just kind of moves in a straight line here, that creates that IK feeling. The other thing is that it feels disconnected from the body. So as you move the body, the hand just kind of stays perfectly in place, or as the body moves, the hand just kind of stays and does its own thing. We want that to feel connected. So if I move my body, that hand should have a reaction in there. Even if I'm trying to keep still, there should be some sort of reaction unless I'm putting my hand on an object. So those are the main two things. Push your arcs and really watch that connectivity. Actually, a third thing. Push the lead and follow. when we move, we don't move from our wrist first all the time. We will sometimes, but sometimes we'll move from our shoulder first, then the rest of the arm. Sometimes we'll move with our elbow first, then the rest of the arm. Sometimes we move with our fingers first, then the rest of the arm goes. So you need to push that lead and follow. IK will almost always lead with the wrist if you're not careful. So you need to break down your poses very clearly. Okay. Now there's another question here. I built a new PC. Should I consider a dual monitor? How much is it better than a single screen? Honestly, it's up to you. I personally can't work with a single screen for most of the work that I do. I've got tons of different programs that I have to run sometimes, and I need 2 monitors. I would say it's typically worth it. 2 monitors is usually worth it for almost anyone, unless you're kind of just doing basic like scrolling through Facebook and like that kind of stuff where you're not actually working on your computer. It's just like watching YouTube videos and that's about it. As soon as you start working on your computer, 2 monitors is super helpful. If you have an ultra wide, you just need to get the one. Right now, I have 6 monitors. Yay. It's too many, honestly. So I have 6 monitors and I do use them. Not all the time. Kind of 2 monitors are there just for in case. But there are many times where I will have all 6 monitors with something happening on each one and I'm trying to work on everything at the same time. That's because of the programs I'm working with and the projects I'm working on. I need that extra space. I also have 2 computers at my desk and I'm working on both at the same time. One of them right now is my streaming computer. That's where you can see me. And then my other is my actual work computer. That's my Cintiq that I'm working on right now. And this way, if my Maya crashes or my Cintiq computer just blue screens for some reason, the stream won't die. And that's a pretty recent addition, which I'm very happy about because it's made some new streams possible, which is really nice. So, yeah. So you definitely don't need that. Honestly, 3 monitors is the max for most people. And I know a lot of people, they go to 3 and it's nice, but then they'll go back to 2 and it's like, that's really all I need. I don't need more than 2. But it depends on you, honestly. There's no right answer to this. It's whatever works best for your workflow. When did you get the Cintiq? So I got the Cintiq actually like a year ago, but because of my old computer setup, I couldn't actually use it. I had it just sitting like almost a year kind of over there, further down on the desk. Then I moved it to another room to try and maybe set up a computer there that I could work upstairs. That just didn't work out. And then when I set up my 2 computer setup here, I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to set up my Cintiq. I want to use it. It's just sitting there doing nothing. I still do have my Intuos 3 right here. This good old Intuos 3. Still in use. But my main system now has the Cintiq, which is very, very nice. Okay. So what size? This I have the 27. Forget the QHD. No, that's not it. Right. Is it 27 inch? I think. 27, 25, somewhere 27 or 25, or 24. It's the 20 something. It's not the 32 inch. And honestly, I do like it, but I still find it's actually sometimes I feel like it's just too big. I kind of wish sometimes that I'd gotten the smaller Cintiq, the 16. It's not that the size isn't appreciated. It's just there's a lot more arm motion through there. And a lot of times I just feel like if I could just keep it a little smaller, I'd be a little bit more efficient in my motions. But that's just being picky. Let's see. So I'm still looking at those hips here, trying to look at the main motions. The side to side feels good. I almost feel like it's too much. That translate X, I feel like it's, for the amount he's moving his feet, I feel like his hips and his feet are fighting each other. I'm just going to try scaling this down like halfway. See how that feels. And I actually kind of like that a little bit more. Now this is where your buffer curves come in handy. So if I buffer this curve here and then scale it down, what I can do is scale it down. Okay, look at the hips. Hit the swap buffer curve button, which is right here. And then see how that feels. Okay, swap back. The smaller motion feels more contained and it makes the feet feel more interesting. When they're both moving, it feels like the feet are doing this and the hip is doing this, and there's just a lot of motion. By toning down the hips, now we have just a little doot, 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 and the feet are going doot, 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 and you get that kind of motion, more tight in the middle. So I'm going to keep it a little tighter here. Translate Z, we already fixed. Translate Y, we already fixed. And we can push this a little bit more. Let's look at our rotates now. Now, rotates are going to be pretty important. Rotate X is going to be pretty basic, honestly. That's the forward lean of the character. So let's look at the character here. And oh, something's going on with his arm. He's got an extra key somewhere. Let me get rid of that. Yeah, right there. Got some extra keys going on through here. FKIK blend on this arm. Let's make sure it stays in FK. Okay. There we go. Cool. So let's look at side view here. So like I was saying, the what was I saying? I was saying something about, oh, okay. Definitely getting some weirdness in my keys here. Something is snapping my arm whenever I hit play pause. I'm gonna have to look for that later on. So this is actually something that happens. Like sometimes you're animating and you're gonna have this weirdness in Maya that happens, and this goes with any program. Honestly, is it a big deal? In this case, kind of, because it's my play pause. It's going to be causing some issues, but worst case scenario, it's not gonna break anything in a horrible way, as long as I'm aware of it and I'm careful about it. So what I'm going to do here is, if I can't play pause, I could play blast, or I can just scrub through. And it's not ideal, but neither is play pause, honestly, unless you've got like a super system that can play at 24 frames per second. Usually that's going to be a little slow and unreliable. So I'm just going to scrub through. Now, one thing that can help with scrubbing is if you hold down the K key in Maya. That'll make it so that I can scrub anywhere. So my mouse cursor is here in the viewport, and I can scrub through. Or I can be in the graph editor, hold down K, and I can scrub right through there. I don't actually need to use my timeline. So I'm scrubbing through here, and I want to refine the rotate X. So that's the lean of the character. Now, one thing that I can clean up right away is that cycle. Right there. Get that nice whoop, clean cycle right through there. The next thing I'm going to do is just kind of see if I can push the curves to be a little bit more dynamic. Maybe add a little overshoot right here. Make that a little bit more dynamic there. And it might look like I'm just kind of moving these keys randomly and just like, oh, let's make them more dynamic. Random, whoop. No. I am moving these keys very specifically to get a specific feeling, because I know what I want my graph editor to look like. I want to have extra hold right here and an extra fast motion in the middle right there. I am thinking of what I want my curve to look like. Flat curves are slow, steep curves are fast, and I want to create a contrast in those moments. So I'm changing this with a very specific kind of thought in mind. Now, as I scrub through here, one thing I'm noticing is that as he comes down here, he starts to lean forward. I can double check that by moving this way up, and you'll notice that when I move up in the curve, he leans forward. And I don't know if I want that in that moment there. So he's taking a step right here, takes a step, leans back, then leans forward, and then leans back again there. I don't know if I really... It kind of creates a weird like shift in his walk. And if he's in a hurry, that doesn't really make sense because now he's doing this as he's walking. It's very fast. If this was a slow, leisurely walk, fine. But fast, that doesn't feel good. Like I just tried myself and nah, I don't like it. So I might take this and I might just get rid of it. Now I might not get rid of it completely, but maybe I'll just take my whole curve and let's just scale it down. So it's super minimal. So we kind of get that motion in there a little bit, but it's just a feeling more than anything. Right through there. So it stiffens him up a little bit, which for the hurried run, that's kind of what we want. We don't want to have him doing this as he's running. Think of it like you're in a hurry and just, like if I'm doing this and I'm just trying to get somewhere in a hurry, my body's not moving up and down because everything is tight. Everything is, I'm not swinging my arms a huge amount. I'm still going to get that rotation here, but I'm not doing this. There might be a little bit, but that's when we can just kind of go, scale that back up a little and get that back in there. Or in this case, I think I'm just going to scale it way down. There we go. If I feel like we can add it in later, I can just easily scale it back up. Okay. Rotate Y, we don't have any of that on the hips. Rotate Z, we don't have any of that, I should say, on the cog. So with that, that's pretty much our cog done for now. This is still what I would typically call the preliminary phase, where we're just going through and we are trying to make everything work and not feel broken. Kind of tying everything together. Now, let's go to the hip control. This is one of my favorite controls to work with because this is where we can start to get a lot of fun little details in here. So with this, the main thing I'm going to look at first is my rotate. Let's do the rotate Y because that's pretty simple. Now, actually, let me catch up with the chat as well. Okay, 24 Pro, that's the one I have for the Cintiq. I guess the idea is to draw from your shoulder rather than your elbow wrist. Yeah, doing that. But even then, when you're reaching for menus, my Cintiq's also kind of sitting far away from me, so I have to lean forward quite a ways. My desk is not super ergonomic, unfortunately. Let's see. This walk just reminded me of Malcolm in the Middle, where Hal puts on a suit and goes for a quick walk. I've only seen bits of Malcolm in the Middle, but I really liked what I've seen. I need to watch it someday. Okay. And let's see. I'm just checking the other Maya just to see what's up with it. It's still worked. So that's fine. We can ignore it for now. Okay, so let's look at our rotate Y first. Rotate Y is the twist of the hips. And essentially what I want here is that twist to feel connected with his legs. So as he reaches forward here on that contact pose, that's most likely going to be the most extreme twist. And then as he starts to bring his other leg forward, we want that hip to start bringing that leg forward as well. So it's going to rotate in that direction. Now it's going to ease out here. Then it's going to move quickly and past the center line here for the passing pose, because the passing should be a little bit ahead of the center. And then we're going to ease in and through. Let's see. I feel like right here, the curve is a little odd, so I'm going to push this a little bit more. And let's see. I'm just thinking where I want to exaggerate things. One thing I want to do is never have a flat curve like this. If this is totally flat right there, nope, that's going to be very wrong. That's not going to be organic at all. That's going to make the character feel kind of stilted in their walk. Okay. I might even just rotate that peak just a little bit there. Get a little overshoot going. Something like that. Okay. So I think that for the rotate Y is pretty much all I need. I'm just going to double check, play through. I'm watching those hips. If you need it to go full screen, let's tone that down here. I'm watching those hips, trying not to look at the body. If you need to, turn on the isolate select. Just focus on that. And overall, I feel like it's not bad. The main area I'm feeling is the rotate Z isn't quite right. There's something off with it. I also feel like maybe I could scale up my rotate Y. So let's just take this whole curve. I'm going to rebuffer it and then scale it. And I'm just going to, if I'm going to scale it, I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to like go 3 times the size approximately and see how that feels. Okay. So there's a couple of things I'm noticing here. One is that I feel like the foot kind of glides a little too much right here. So I'm going to have to remember to look at that later. I want to push a little bit more of the arc of the foot there. A little bit more of the spacing. But if I'm looking at the hips, that definitely you feel it a lot more. But the main thing is, do we need to feel it? Again, do that hurried speed walk kind of. Are you going to be doing big swinging motions as you're speed walking, or is it going to be just kind of like this? Your feet are going, but you're in a hurry. You're not doing a run. It's just a fast walk. So do I need to put it that much? No, I don't feel like that's right. Even just looking at this, it's starting to feel like the hips are doing this and the feet are just kind of dragging behind. So I'm going to just kind of switch the buffer curve and just compare. Yeah, that feels better in comparison. So this is how I can know that I'm going in the right direction. I can exaggerate a curve, go too far, and see, is that feeling right in comparison to what I had? Now I feel like I could still maybe raise this up a little bit. Just a little. So I'm going to scale it up just a bit here. So we still have some motion in there. Okay. Now the rotate Z, this is the important one. This is the side rotation of the hips, and we really want this to feel like they are connected. So there's 2 ways that we want to feel this is connected. One is when the foot is in the air, how is it going to raise up that foot? Is the foot going to drag that hip down on that side, or is it going to the hip going to help raise the foot up. So it's raising up like so. In my case, I want that raise. So what is rebuffering? It just saves it back into the cache. So saving the buffer curve saves it so I can have a preview here of what my curve used to look like. I can swap between the two, pick the one I like, and then hit buffer curve again to replace the cache, and then save the current curve back in. It's very useful. The buffer curves is like a super undo, super weapon in your graph editor. It's so good. So I'm raising the hip here. That's what I want for this walk. Now I want that to feel connected where the hips are helping the leg raise and not just raising around the same time that the leg raises. The next thing is contact. When the leg contacts, that will usually give a kind of hitch to the walk. So if I take my hand here, and let's go full screen for this. If I take my hand here and I'll press down on my desk, watch this shoulder here. So I'm just going to kind of fall forward and then catch myself on the desk. See that? How my shoulder catches here and then the other one comes forward? That's what I want in my walk. Even if I'm raising that side here, as I come down, there's going to be that extra little dunk and a little shift in there. So I want to try and get that. And thanks for the reminder. Water break. So I want to try and get that in there. Those two elements. Usually. And sometimes certain walks will require more elements in there. So here, as that foot raises up, what I'm noticing is, see how the foot is already starting to come up off the ground. He's peeling that foot up, but the hip is just dragging behind right now. It's not really doing anything until the foot's already in the air and then the hip kicks in. That kind of feels late to me. I feel like that's just not right. So I want to switch that a little bit. The other thing is, as the foot contacts here, it just kind of swings down the other way. I'm not feeling that hit in there. So I'm going to try and add a little bit of those. That hit is going to be very minor if we do it, because again, this is a hurried walk, not a very heavy walk. Now, there's a question here. I accidentally blocked out an animation, but I realized I was animating on 30 frames per second, and I changed it to 24 per second, and now my frames are in partial numbers. So if that happens, just take your timeline, shift select your timeline, right click, hit snap. That'll take all of your keys, snap them onto whole frames. And then you should be all good to go. So if ever you have partial frames, that's the nice, quick, easy way to do it. Okay, so let's first get the hips to raise up at the same time. Now, I could keep my curves here and like rebuild the curve, or because I've got an infinity cycle here, just as a quick test, just to see how it works, I can take my curve, I'll just nudge it forward a couple frames. No one will know. Now, as that foot is raising up, you can see that that hip is moving up faster already, because if you look at my curve, it's moving faster right there. So I now get that fast motion here, comes down, drags the foot down, fast motion up right there. Does that feel better? So without having to like move all of my keys one at a time, I can kind of get a feel here. Not quite, maybe only one frame. Let's see how that feels. That feels better. So I get that pull on the hip right there. Then as it comes down, the hip comes down there with it. Perfect. So that actually solved that whole section right there just by offsetting it one frame. And because I'm in splines and because I'm doing an infinity cycle, no one's going to notice if it's off one frame. The big key here is I'm doing it with a purpose. I'm not just offsetting things. Oh, I've been told I have to offset things one frame. Okay. Oop. I hope it's better now. I'm thinking of why. Why am I offsetting it, and what is the result I'm looking for? Now, once again, I like to try and push my curves just to be a little bit more dynamic here. Once again, that little cheat that you can do, take your curve, I'm just going to buffer it here. And then I'm going to set it to linear mode. So you can kind of see nothing feels linear. So for example, if this key was here, that's linear. I don't want that. I want to have curves for most things. Now, instead of going back, I can just hit swap buffer and I'm back to my curve that I had before. Or I could just hit undo, honestly. So we've got that, and that feels pretty good. Now for the contact here, he contacts here on frame 9, and then his hips come down here. To get that little impact, I would do this, where the hip comes down and then back up and then across right there. Now that's going to be a little too much there. So what I might do is I'm going to insert a key right here after the contact and push that up a little bit. So we get that contact, hit, and then down. Something like this. So we get a little bit of an impact right in there. Same thing here. So where's our contact? Frame 1. Contact down. Actually, let me double check here. Okay, 10. Actually, my contact is on frame 10. So let me undo that. You want to make sure you're on the right contact or on the right frames. So I'm just going to take this key. I can still set a key right before that contact. And then I'm just going to bring that up and then back down. So contact, up, down. And I want to ease this out a little bit. So I'm going to ease that and then go quickly in the middle here. Something more like that. Now, you don't have to do this. This is essentially what is typically called adding dirt in your animation. It's adding imperfections. Because as we walk, we are not perfect beings. We do not walk and everything glides perfectly smoothly on like perfectly greased bearings. No. As we walk, we're going to hit bumps. We've got little bone spurs. We've got things in our body that don't move quite right. Having a little bit of dirt in the shot, basically something that an imperfection, just kind of helps to add to that. So it's not that we need it. We don't have to put this in, but I'm going to try it. If I don't feel like it's adding anything, I can just take it out. And right now, I don't know if I really feel like it's adding much. I kind of feel like it adds a little bit of something, but I'm just going to try on this step, kind of reversing this here. So we push it up even more just to see. If you're not feeling it, exaggerate it more so you really feel it, and then see if that gives you what you want. In this case, I got that. Or, once again, we have our buffer curves. I can always swap back super quick, see what we had before. And I kind of like what we had before. It's just smoother. And especially for a hurried walk, we're not going to get these little every step, because we're only dealing with 9 frames per step approximately. So I don't want to get caught up on too many like extra details in there. I'm using the Darius rig, which is an Animation Mentor rig. Yeah, let's keep it simple for now. I've got my buffer curve saved. If I want to, I can come back to this and bring that back. But we at least got the hips to feel like they are helping the leg move up instead of dragging behind. So that's the important thing. So right there, we've got the hips pretty much done. Let's see, did I miss anything? I don't think so. I do have some rotate X in here. Let's see, how much is there in here? The rotate X is going to be a lean forward. Getting a little bit. I think I can almost zero that out for now. Because the spine is going to be the main object that we're worried about. The hips, they're not really going to be bouncing up and down. Again, there's not going to be this rotation this way when we walk. Otherwise, it just gets very busy. Okay. So we've got that. I would say the hips are pretty much set. With that, I just have a few tweaks I want to do to the legs again. And I need to delete those keys on the arm there. Okay. So, think. Feet. So there's a few tweaks I want to do on the feet. Essentially, I want to go back in. We already kind of did a quick refining, but now that I've got the hip in place, I can just refine it on a more direct level. So I can adjust my foot rolls here, get that foot or that leg to start straightening out right there. Pushes forward. I kind of feel like I could push up on the passing pose here a little bit more. Get that nice and straight in there. Try not to overstretch the leg here. It comes forward. See, maybe not quite so high. Okay. So we've got something like that. Okay, cool. So let's push the foot. So it comes through, get that foot contact, make sure I can see the knee so I don't mess anything up with the knee there. Contacts. If I want to make this contact just a little bit more dynamic, I can push my toe tap right here and to have that kind of drag up before kind of hitting the ground there. I could do something like that. I don't think I really need to, honestly, with this because he's wearing shoes. And I was actually doing a demo in a class earlier. Shoes are stiff. So, talking about steps and shoes. Shoes are very stiff. If you try to bend this, there's not much flexibility. Like, you can do this. The other way, not very much at all. When your foot's in here, it's hard to just bend your toes up like this when it's in a shoe. Your toes aren't that strong to bend the rubber here. So if it's in the air, you're not really going to get a flex like this. Now we can add that for exaggeration purposes, but if I want this to feel like a solid shoe, I want to be very careful about what I do there. Okay. So I'm watching this foot here, the red foot. It comes up. We're getting a little bit of a knee pop right here. That I can probably fix with my foot roll. So I'm just going to key this in place right there. Okay. Foot pushes up. raises up here. And normally for walks, what I really like to do, so I'm just going to take this foot and we're going to just buffer the whole thing. This way we have kind of a super undo button. I'm going to try and change things a lot on this foot just for the sake of testing. There's nothing wrong with trying things out. Now, what I really like to do with feet is try to exaggerate the arc that they move in, and specifically the hold at the beginning and the end. So if we look at our editable motion trail here, turning frames, you'll notice that it just kind of keeps moving forward the whole time, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But aside from like these two poses right here, the foot just kind of moves forward evenly. Again, not a bad thing. That's how feet tend to move. But I could exaggerate that a little bit by having his foot hold a little bit more at the beginning. So, for example, here, I'm just going to take this foot back, whoop, and move it way back here. Let that foot really hang back as he goes up. So I'm going to have to adjust my spacing as he raises his foot here. But then what that's going to do is make the foot really travel quickly through the motion here. And I'm going to really ease it out at the end here. Or sorry, ease it in. And now that foot is going to hold and then hold near the end. I can push that spacing even more here. And maybe even ease out there just a little bit. Okay. So keep in mind, this is all a test. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push the visual clarity of the step by making the step move faster in the middle and ease more at the ends. What I'm going to end up doing is creating a foot motion that just feels more organic and is easier to read than a motion that's just kind of linear right there. So I'm essentially just testing. That's really what I'm doing here. I could even push this foot pose a little bit more forward if I wanted to. So maybe I'm going to take a key right here, insert it, and just kind of ease that even more forward there. Okay, and then translate Y, get a little bit of a bend in there. Okay. So with this, we now have to redo our whole foot push forward. Is that a big deal? Not really. Like, it's going to be a little bit of work, but it's not a big deal, really. I might actually take this foot position here. Let's see. How far can we push this back here? So this will all depend on how far I can get it without this back leg starting to break and overstretch. So bring that back there. Bring this back over here. And then forward. And maybe even, let's see. It comes forward here. I'm watching that knee, trying to make sure that the knee doesn't ascend. I don't want it to, what's the word I'm looking for? To start straightening and then bending and then straightening again. It should be a nice smooth motion. So I'm kind of using that as my initial guide here. And then from there, I can refine it even more. So we get something like that. So now we've got that nice curve. Hold, hold, hold. And then it goes off. Now there's kind of a pop right here between these two poses. So I might just push my toe brake a little bit. Put my foot roll up just a little bit more. Just kind of exaggerate that a little bit more there. And I'm just doing this frame by frame. One frame at a time. Okay. There we go. Now, how does that feel? Let's see. If we look at this now, you can kind of see the slight difference in both feet there. The one further away from us, as it moves through the middle, is kind of linear right there. That's not a bad thing. The other foot, as it moves through, it kind of holds here, then it starts moving, and then we get 1, 2, 3, 4 frames right there. Whereas the other foot, we get 1, 2 contact right there. So we've added an extra frame towards the end. Maybe we can push that even more. So let's see how far we can push this. Don't be afraid to exaggerate. This is one of the key things with animation is exaggeration. It's one of the principles. See how far you can push something before it just feels totally broken. So I can push this, and now we have sweep through 1, 2, and like it just holds, goes down. We could do something like that. Now at this point, I feel like I've gone too far because now he's starting to feel less like a hurried walk and more of a kind of kick out. It feels like he's got something in his shoe that he's trying to get out of his shoe. So that's too far. But now I know. That's the big thing. And I'm not just speeding up and like, is it good? Is it God? I don't know. I'm thinking through. What does it make me feel? Is it making it feel too slow, too fast, too something else? Try to really understand what it is we're looking at here. Now I'm going to try to push this even further back here. Just to, once again, push that spacing right through. Now this is going to mess up our foot arc here. That foot's slipping back too far. I don't want the toes to slip back. That's the key factor here. Okay. That's feeling decent. I'll need to put do a play blast to really get a feel of it though. So let me fix the spacing of the heel one more time. And then we can do a quick play blast just to see how the feet are working. Now you'll notice I spend a lot of time on the feet here. At this point. This is because we want to make that read correctly. If that's not reading correctly, well, we've got a lot more work to do. Okay, this pose here needs to be a little higher. Get that nice drag there. I can even drag the toes a little bit more here. And then swoop through. Then I feel like this swoop here, we could exaggerate the toes. Roll. So contact frame 19. This frame, I'm getting some foot roll in here that I don't want. I just want to use rotations. There's definitely something off with the foot roll there, but I can fix that, and it's a really cool control on this rig, which I'll show in just a little bit. But I'm pushing that arc right through there, swooping that foot down. Comes up. I want that nice kick right there, where his foot is just arcing across. And contact them. Okay. Spacing wise, it feels good right here. I feel like maybe I can push a little bit of a toe break right here, just to start rounding that out right there. Maybe even here, just a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So we've got that motion right there on the foot. Now, is it too much? Is it not enough? Let's find out. So I'm going to take this. It could be completely wrong. Like, this is the thing. We are not doing this as a be all end all. First try, we must succeed. Everything is going to be perfect. No. A lot of animation, especially when you're first learning, is going to be, gee, I hope this works. And that's okay. I'm just going to zoom in here, get a nice framing so we can see some detail. It's okay to not succeed at first, as long as you are understanding why you're doing it, and then why it, like, you pay attention. Why didn't it work? What did I do wrong? Okay. Let's save this to my desktop here. I'm going to call this hurried. Okay. So let's take a look at this. It's definitely going to feel wrong. But we'll point out what's happening. And how do you pose the other foot? Studio Library. And do I copy the other foot? It depends on the walk. Sometimes I'll just animate it manually. If I want to copy it, Studio Library is a good way of copying the motion. Let's see, what happens if we try to do this, putting a key every frame for the movement of the foot? You can definitely do that. There's many times where I will key every frame on a foot motion to get exactly what I want and not what the computer wants. From there, once I know what curve I need, I can delete any extra keys that I have because they're just extra. And I simplify that curve so it's nice and clean. So yeah, it's okay to animate every key as long as you're doing it with a purpose. If you're just setting keys because I've got to set keys and I need more keys, but you're just putting them in for no reason, that's not going to help. And then don't be afraid to clean them out afterwards. I find it hard to make the thigh get in place before swinging the calf, because it all depends on the foot control. Yeah, so you need to get the hip rotation and the foot rotation working together. And it's tricky. It takes a little bit. So right there, let's see. The hip, I feel, is a little stiff. That's not a bad thing. But I do feel like he's starting to lean away from hurried and more, for lack of a better term, constipated. I want him to feel hurried, which is not super stiff. So I feel like I could exaggerate the rotations of the hips here a little bit, make that more dynamic. And for the feet, it actually doesn't look too bad. I do feel like that back foot, which is the one we were animating, is a little fast though. So let's compare. This is where our buffer curves come in handy. since I was animating this foot and I saved everything to buffer curves, I can just swap this back out. Oop. There's our old arc right there. Let's do another play blast. Just as a different file number. And I can compare. So buffer curves allowed us to do all of those changes. And now we can just go back and check it out. How does it compare? And I like that more. So in this case, I did a quick test. It took like a little while. If I was doing it on my own, it would be like 15 minutes just to kind of get an idea. And now I know for certain which one I like. So that feels much better. There's definitely some knee wiggles. We're seeing that right here. It goes bent, straight, bent right here. A little bit there. The knee pops forward and then stops right here. That's the main knee wiggle we're seeing. The other leg is pretty good, but this one, we've got that little spacing pop right there, which is causing it. Okay, so we know. Now I know that this version is good. Cool. I just need to fix that little bit of a spacing pop in the knee, and then I can scale up the rotations on the hips. So the knee pop was right here. Just snaps and stops. So I can just pull that foot back and translate Z. Right there. Now that knee keeps going forward. Oops. Oop. There we go. Fixed. Voila. And then go to the hips. I'm going to take my, sorry, not that control, this control. Take my rotate Y and let's scale this up. So I'm going to, I know this, I want to keep this just in case I want to go back to it. So I'm going to buffer that curve and let's scale it. Let's go about half. Or not half, twice size, approximately. Always over exaggerate and then bring it down if you have to. Okay. The rotate Z feels too extreme. From the front, now that we see the body in here, if you look at that rotate Z, he's kind of got this really high angle there. It feels like he's trying to walk up some steps. So I'm going to buffer this curve. And I'm going to go to my extreme pose where it's at the highest level right there. I'm just going to scale the whole curve down. I definitely want there to be a connection there, but I don't want him to feel like he is, oops, a little lag there. I don't want it to feel like he is kind of bouncing around. Scale this. Out. My computer's lagging now. It was working fine before. It's got the nerves. Okay, so about half. Okay, that's pretty good. So, if we play through that, yeah, I could probably tone it down even more still. But we did say on our last play blast that I was going to turn it up. So I turned it up and I'm going to keep it up there. So with this, let's think of what we can do now. So we've been working on the feet and the hips for a while now. At this point, and just kind of in general with shots, when you're getting to this point, take a break. Work on something else. So I'm going to try to work on something that's not really connected. In the sense, like if I move the hips, it's not going to affect something else. The way I animated the spine, I can animate this and adjust it, and I'm not going to affect anything in the hips. I'm going to take all my spine controls right here. And let's clean this up. So this is going to be mostly my rotations. Rotate X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to take my rotate X here. And let's first clean up our cycles. This should be the first thing you tend to clean up when you're first going into splines because, well, it's going to make a big difference. Okay. Water break. Thanks for the reminder. Okay. So we've got our rotate X. This is the lean forward back. I don't really want too much of this, honestly. Like I can have a little bit of it, but I feel like even this is too much. So I'm going to tone it down a lot. I'll still keep it in there in case I need it though. Rotate Y. So this is the big one. This is the one that I really felt is like almost too much. He's really swinging his chest here. Really fast, he holds, really fast, he holds. It's almost mechanical. And you can see it right here, how it's flat between these keys. Look at that flat curve right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and ease this out a little bit. Round it out. Kind of get a little bit more of a bouncing ball, pendulum arc in here. So a little rounder there. Something a little bit more like this. Still fast in the middle, because I do want to get that nice ease in, ease out motion, but not so fast that we are plateauing. So I'm looking at my curve here. Still a little plateau right there. Let's pull it down a little bit here. Maybe add a little overshoot right there. Help round that out. This key right here, it's not really adding a ton, so I could just delete it. It's kind of getting in the way of my nice clean arc. So this is where you don't need to keep all your keys. If a key is not helping you, get rid of it. Oops, no, translate, rotate. There we go. Cool. So look at those arcs now compared to, I forgot to buffer it, but compared to what we had before where there were really sharp plateaus. Let's see, is offsetting keys to add overlap a bad habit? No, it really is just workflow. I personally prefer, if I can, to add keys in my poses as much as possible, and then use the offset as a last resort, or not a last resort, but like if I forgot a offset, or if I want to create an offset or an overlap, fine. But it really just depends on how you're animating it. Like in this animation, I offset one of the rotations to just make the hips work a little bit better. Okay. And I might even offset this rotation here so that the hips and chest don't rotate at the same time. So I might have the chest a little bit delayed, so we have the hips kind of lead the rotation, then the chest comes through. So we get a kind of 1-2 motion in here. We'll see. Now, the big thing is that chest is just moving way too much. So let's buffer this and then shrink it way down. That feels better already. The chest is not doing this big swing back and forth. Maybe a little higher here. Okay. We get something like that. Let's bring back the offset here just to see how it feels like that. Maybe a little less. Let's see. In terms of looking at people's shots, I don't know if I'm going to have time today. I'm going to try to make tomorrow a feedback day, especially since I know it's like week 11. Mostly because we've almost been here for 4 hours, and I only slept like an hour in the last... When did I go to sleep? The last 30 hours? Have I been up that long already? No. 24, 29, 34 hours. Yeah, it's been 34 hours. In the last 34 hours, I've slept like an hour. So I'm probably going to take a nap right after this. And there is no working on animation. Unfortunately, Mark wasn't able to make it this week, and then next week, since it's week 12, there's no working on animation. So unfortunately, not this week. They should be back at the start of next term. Or probably week 2 of next term, I should say. Let's maybe... I'm just going to see. What happens if I tone this like way down? Way, way down. That's actually not bad. Okay. Yeah, let's go with that. Now I'm going to take my next one, the Rotate Z, clean that up because that's a horrible cycle. Ugh. Let's see. You got to get some rest. I don't need sleep. I do need sleep. Who needs sleep? It's a weakness. I don't want to put my body on the body shelf, also known as a bed. No, I must stay awake. That's not healthy. Get some sleep. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. It is not a good thing what I'm doing right now. I can feel my brain. You don't want to feel your brain. Like when you start to just kind of have that like throbbing. It's not like a headache. It's just like, it's kind of like when you start feeling your tongue. Like when you're just kind of like, why do I feel my tongue inside of my mouth? I'm not supposed to feel my tongue. Or when you start seeing your nose, I was like, oh, yeah, it's right here. I can see it all the time. And it's like, I can feel my brain. Why? I need sleep. And Jing, hey, how's it going? Yeah. What's rest? Who knows? Obviously, I haven't learned. You'd think after all of this time, I would have figured it out at some point. And thanks for the raging. Oh, thank you so much. I hope the stream went well. I keep wanting to drop by, but as you can see, my sleep schedule sucks. And my work schedule isn't much better. But hopefully in the next little bit, I'm going to improve it. So I'm going to scale down this curve as well quite a bit. That's a little too much. I just want to have a little bit more kind of... I want the arms to swing, but not the body. I don't want him to do this as he's walking. It's like you're hyper aware of everything on your body. Exactly. Okay. So let's see how this feels here. So he's walking. Yeah, that's feeling better. Now, you'll notice that the arms are kind of throwing us off a little bit. If I feel like, oh man, these arms, they're just getting in my way. let's hide them. So I'm going to select all my character. Once again, hit F11 to select faces mode. And I'm just going to select the arms. So let's select, let's go to object symmetry. Let's see if it'll work here. No, didn't want to work on here. Topology symmetry. Sometimes you can get this to select both sides at once. Oops, actually make sure it's turned on here. Oh, doesn't want to turn on. Oh well. Symmetry sometimes will be helpful. If it doesn't turn on, that's fine. So I'm going to select the arm right there. Let's make sure I don't select part of the body here. Although that is not the biggest thing if I do accidentally select that. Okay, something like this. And now, oh, I'm selecting edges. I need to select faces. No, okay, I'm selecting faces. Okay, good. So, select this again. And I'm just going to select all the way around here. Oh, interesting. For some reason, it is selecting edges. Weird. Maya is just being weird today. There we go. Yeah. See, it's just selecting edges. Weird. Maya. Now, here, let me show a few of the tools. So there's this tool here on the left side. This is the paint selection tool. And essentially what this allows me to do is just paint in a selection. So I can just draw over top, and it's a little laggy right now. But I can just draw over top of the arm here, and I can paint a selection like that. Now, you'll notice the selection is very slow. If you're seeing that selection is slow, try lowering the geometry detail. This can sometimes speed that up. So I want to select everything. Make sure I get the legs in there as well, just not the floor. Although I could select the floor as well. And I want to select once again the faces, so hit F11. Much faster. Look at that. Responsive timing. It helps when we're not working with hundreds of faces. Who would have thought? So, wrong button. I went to reach for one button. See, this is what happens when you're tired. Your fingers hit everything. Earlier, I crashed Maya by hitting the wrong hotkey, and now I just reached over to hit my keyboard, and I hit my Stream Deck, and just hit the wrong button on there. I think I need sleep. Nah. Who needs it? Okay. So I've just selected that arm there. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to select the other arm. Super quick. Right here. Now actually, do I want to show this? Yeah. It's going to make it so I have to reselect some things, but this is another cool way you can select things. So let's say I want to select more on this arm. Well, what I can do is I can select the same amount of faces on each arm here. I'm going to deselect everything up here and make sure I'm selecting the same amount of edge loops. Same amount of faces on each arm. Like so. I think that's good. Oop, missed one there. And have too many faces right here. Okay, so I've selected the same amount of faces on each arm. Now what I can do is hold down Control, right click, and hit Grow Selection. And what that'll do is select all the faces next to that selection. And for some reason it looks like I had a few others hidden there, but you can see it just grew that. If I hit G again, it'll grow that selection once more and keep expanding it. So I can start to select things a little bit faster this way. Now in my case, because I'm getting a little bit of lag, which is just my computer crying out for help, It didn't quite work, but usually you can select things very quickly here. And overall, it actually sped things up. So I've got both arms selected. Now with those selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, click and drag, and swap my selection. So now anything that was not selected is going to be selected. Anything that was selected, no longer selected right here. I'm going to go to Show, Isolate Select, turn off my bookmarks, then Isolate Select, View Selected right there. It looks like I missed some faces right there. Oop. Do that. Make sure I have View Selected turned on. There we go. We'll leave that ring for now. And I'm just going to bookmark this and call this Body. Okay. So now I can deselect this right here. And let's turn that on and off and make sure my bookmarks is set to Body. And there we go. Now I can look at my walk without the arms getting in the way. Now you'll notice that we're still seeing the clavicle motion, and that can kind of be annoying. Whereas like, I don't really want to see the clavicles doing this when I'm not seeing the arms. I just want to see the rotation of the body. So instead of hiding all of that geometry, I'm just going to take my clavicles. I'm going to go to kind of a neutral pose where they're in the middle. And I'm just going to take my curves here, right click, mute selected. And that's right here. So what mute selected does is it just turns off the animation on those elements. So for example, if I was to mute the arms, let's get them in this pose here. Take both of these, take my rotations, mute selected. We get that. So I've turned off the animation in those shoulders there. So with that, now when I isolate select right here, we shouldn't see too much motion there. We should be mostly seeing the rotation of the body. I'm still seeing a little bit of the arms, so I can just take my arm controls. Let's mute all. And then, so now we're just getting that rotation in the body. No arm motion getting in the way, nothing else. I can just focus on this, see how it's feeling. And overall, it's not bad. I definitely feel like now that I only see the body, it feels a little too slight. But what we can do to make sure, just to make sure before we start doing any tweaks, is actually do a play blast. Okay, so I want to see that front view here. Now to get the proper cycle here, I'm actually not going to go to frame 37 right there. Okay, and let's make sure I frame this up correctly. That was going to be very far away. Okay, something like this. Turn off my resolution gate, and then play blast. And we'll call this buried front. Version, we'll call this 2. Okay. So, let's see. Now, it's not going to be perfect. That's the whole point of this play blast, is we want to look at it and try to figure out what can we do to improve it. Okay. So the body, I'm still feeling a little bit of that robotic kind of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I kind of feel like I can push a little bit more of that organic overlap. I feel like same thing with the rotate Z. If I'm kind of watching the upper part of his neck here, it that collar there where it meets, I'm just watching the arc that is creating there. And it feels like it's kind of 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I want to push a little bit more of that flow. I don't want to lose it entirely. I do want a little bit of that, like, but I feel like it's just too much right now. I feel like the hips might still be a little too rotated. Like he's got a really hippie motion right here, especially for a hurried walk. But at the same time, I don't feel like I want to tone it down to the point where we lose it completely. I might also push my translate X up a little bit more. So let's go through that super quick here. So let's go in here and start cleaning that up. So for the hips, I want to increase my translate X, just see how that feels. So I'm going to buffer this just in case. If it doesn't work out, I can always go back. I'm going to raise that up a little bit. Okay. Also make sure that it's centered. Take my hips. And I said potentially lowering the rotate Z of the hips. You can see we already lowered it quite a bit. So I'm going to buffer that, and then let's lower even more. And don't do small changes, do big changes. If you're going to lower it, really lower it. That way we can see a big contrast. And because I have my buffer curves, I know that rotate Z was before too much. It kind of felt like he's kind of doing this big hippie motion. I don't want to just lower a little bit, maybe a little bit more. No, lower it till you feel like, okay, this is going to be way too much. Now, if I hit that point where it's like, oh, way too much, I know that I'm within that range. The range I want, the range that I feel is going to be good is somewhere in there. If I still feel, oh, it's too much, well, I just skipped 10 steps of going down, 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 down. So either way, I've sped up my workflow. I've either found the range within I need to work in, or I've skipped a whole bunch of small little steps. Always over exaggerate. And then from there, refine. If you're working in tiny little steps every single time, you're never going to get there. Okay, so rotate Y. I felt like it's still a little too kind of mechanical. So I'm going to try and ease this a little bit more. Round out that arc just a little bit right through here. Let's see. Let's maybe get rid of... Do I want to get rid of that key? Let's try. So I'm getting rid of keys so that I can just get a more organic arc here. More round and flowing. I also feel like maybe I could tone this back up, this whole curve. Might not be right, but at least I'll be able to see any mistakes more clearly. Okay. Now I've also changed where my peaks are. You'll notice that my peak is over here and back here now. So this is actually going to be very important that I keep that in mind, because I might need to offset my curve. Kind of forward this way. And then from there I can rekey it if I need to. But for now, I'm just going to keep it approximately where it is. And actually, let's see if I can just get this without overshooting to be nice and smooth. So something like that. And this is a little sharp here. So I will insert a key here just to round that out. Just a little bit. Same thing here. Okay. Okay. We'll see how that feels. Rotate Z. So it was the same thing, and I can kind of see what's happening right there. It's between these two keys and these two keys. So I'm going to try and ease that a little bit more. So let's bring this in a little bit. This in a little bit. Rotate that. Try to round that out here a little bit more. Right around that corner. So something a little bit more like that. And I should have buffered it, but our old curve, all we'd have to do is fix the connections there, and then we'll be fine. So not a big deal. And then I felt like let's scale this up just a bit more. Just a little bit. And then let me look at the hips versus body rotations here. Essentially what I'm looking for is the connection between the hips and the body. I want the chest to drag behind the hips. So the hips need to rotate in Y first, and then the body follows. So I'm going to try to offset this one frame. So hips lead, body follows. Hips lead, body follows. Okay, that feels pretty good. This motion here is too fast. It was that right there. There's a kind of snapping along those points there. I'm gonna ease that in there. Looking at my curve, looks good. Okay. Already it's feeling more organic. If I'm looking at the collar of the shirt, it's got a little bit of a wave to it. Now I feel like my rotate Z. Let's try to offset this. I'm actually just going to offset this 2 frames just to see how it feels. Let's offset it back 2 frames just to see. So essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm just kind of getting a feel. How does it work one way or the other? Okay, this one he feels more balanced. So if I have the body kind of drag behind, or lead in this case I should say, it makes him feel like he's keeping his head over his hips here. He's trying to stay balanced. If I offset it the other way, it makes it feel like he's kind of leading the action. He's doing this as he's working or as he's moving. So he's leaning and then he's doing that. And I kind of like that. So I'm going to see if I can just find a nice offset in there. It kind of gives me the feel that I want. Maybe it doesn't give me anything, but I can do a quick test and it doesn't hurt me at all. Okay. I feel like that works pretty well. Okay. There's something off with the foot right here. The translate X pops out. I'll have to double check that. Same thing on that other foot right there. Pop. So that's a quick fix. Let's just go in here. Translate X. Right there. So let's ease that in a little bit. And I can refine it a little bit more later. So a lot of this is just exploration and testing, especially when you're kind of just learning and you want to kind of explore different possibilities. Don't feel like you have to get all of this done like in the first go. The big thing is that you're making choices, informed choices that are, what's the right word I'm looking for? That are helping you to learn what you need to do versus just kind of moving things for the sake of moving things. If you've reached that point where you're just kind of moving things because I'm an animator and that's my job, gotta move, something's not right. Okay, that feels better there. Getting a little pop right there. Okay, there we go. So let's do another play blast here. See how this feels. And I might have to call it soon, just because I haven't really had much to eat in the last 30 hours, and I'm starting to feel it. And PJ Elliott, hey, thank you so much for the sub. Aw, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Also, hello, hope you're doing well. It's been a while. Hope you've been doing good and enjoying, I guess it's spring in a lot of areas. It's still winter here. But enjoying the spring. Let's see. So, let's look at what we had before, just to remind ourselves. So the body felt a little stiff, feet kind of poppy, hips, there's not enough side to side, or at least that's what I felt. I made some changes, might be wrong. Maybe I'll make it too much and it's going to look even worse. But then we'll know. So we have that. Let's compare what we have now. Much better. Like if you watch the neck here, that point right there on the neck, see how it's moving in a smoother arc versus here where it's kind of, it's a very slight thing, but it creates a more natural flow in the body. The hips, I feel like the side to side, it's actually hitting a pretty good spot. I feel like I can refine it a little bit more, but it doesn't feel like the legs aren't, or the hips aren't doing anything. I think I might tone it down like part way. Again, this is where you find that range. I scaled it up. At this point, I feel like it's a little too much, but I know now where I want to go. Probably favoring this, just a little lower. The feet from the side view kind of feel a little from the front view feel a little linear. That's a quick fix. But overall, the body is feeling much stronger. Just with those few tweaks there. I feel like the hips, I need to adjust the rotate Y of the hips just a little bit. They have a little bit of that mechanical feeling to them. So it's taking this here and reducing this very fast motion just a little bit. I still have that nice ease in, ease out, but we're just toning it down a little. And that should do it. Now this will probably affect the knees quite a bit, but I can always tweak those after. And you'll notice that it's a lot of back and forth. That's not a bad thing. Now, as you get more experience, and if you're not demoing things, it tends to go a little bit faster. Like a walk like this, it's taken me, 2 hours, something like that at this point. Just kind of refining the splining, which honestly isn't too bad. At this point, I'm pretty much done, and I just need to do the head, a little bit of the feet, and the arms. The head is going to be easy. I just copy the curves from the body onto the head. Done. Just like I did last time. I want unmute selected, just so I can see the arms again. The arms just need a little bit of overlap. I won't have time to do that today, unfortunately. Maybe if I have time tomorrow after feedback, I can try to finish the arms. But yeah, so head, honestly, we can do it right here. Right now the curves are kind of bleh. They're not great. So I'm just going to take these rotations here, and essentially I just need them to follow what the body is doing. So I'm going to take my rotate Z of the body, copy that, take the rotate Z of the head. Let's buffer the curve so we can see where it used to be, just so we have that comparison. Buffer curves is one of the most amazing tools ever. I'm going to delete the animation that I have currently, and then go to edit, paste. I want to copy from the clipboard, and I want to replace the whole thing. Paste. There we go. So there's our curve from the body. I can now just offset it. So there's our rotate Z. Pretty much done. Rotate Y. Same thing. Rotate Y. Copy. Head. Rotate Y. I always delete the keys. That's just my preference. You don't technically have to do that. Paste. Let's offset it 1 frame. There we go. Rotate Y. Pretty much done. Now, you can scale it down as well, so it doesn't match exactly what the body is doing. But yeah, let's maybe tone it down just a little bit, like halfway. Same thing with the rotate Z. And then yeah, rotate X. I'm just going to copy the rotate X from the body, which actually I don't think there is any. So if there's none on that, I'll take it from the hips, the up and down, because that's what's causing the overlap. Edit, copy, rotate X, delete that, edit, paste, and there we go. Now that might be a little too little, so I'm going to scale that up. Because I'm copying from a translation to a rotation, where we might see a kind of lack of scale in here. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then offset it by like 1 or 2 frames. Something like that. So now I have that head nod in there. It's not quite perfect, but I can refine it later once I play Blast and get an idea of what's happening. But there we go. That got the head pretty much done. So at this point, it's really just the arms and a little bit more refining on the feet. Now the feet, refining feet is one of my favorite things, because that's where you get a lot of extra life in a pose and really just get some interesting dynamics. getting those little slides and little motions adds a lot. So I just skipped back to my broken Maya, and that actually reminds me I should save. But just kind of as a example of that, and interesting, that broken Maya is crashing every other program when I try to open them. What did that other Maya do? Okay, make sure I save this. Make sure it's the right version. Not that one. This one. Save again. Also, save scene as a version up. We'll go version 2. Just in case. Because I'm going to go in here, Task Manager, and I'm just going to quit that other version of Maya. Okay. There we go. Did it work? I think so. Haha. Task Manager to the rescue. Okay. So, just kind of show an example. This is something I did on the streams a while back. Dance demo. So this was just a dance test for the Reimu rig that I was doing. And if you watch the feet here, this is an example of like taking that time to polish the feet. When you look at the feet here, you'll notice that they don't glue to the floor. So for example, right here, you'll notice that there's a little bit of slip right there as it comes back. As it comes down here, it's hard to see, but it contacts here and then slips backwards as it hits. The foot steps here and you feel that drag on the toes as the heel drags back. And there's this little bit of rotation, comes forward, and you get that pressure and slip. It actually slips backwards right there. Right here, you definitely feel that slip right here on the foot. When feet contact the ground, they don't just glue into the spot that they hit. They slide forward, they rotate, they twist. Especially when feet are like hitting hard, like right here. That foot hits the ground there. And then if you look at the heel really close, you can see that it actually spins a little bit right there. Same thing here. That foot contacts right there. I'll put the mouse cursor right at the tip. And you'll see that it slides back quite a ways. Like, quite a ways. It's like a few pixels, but it's still enough. Right here, that foot slides back on the ground, kind of catches and slides again. So it's little details like that. I love those little details because that's what really makes a foot pass just feel really, really solid. And that's kind of what we're missing right now. We did a basic foot pass. It's working. It's definitely more refined than what we started with. But at this point, now I want to go into polish. And polish is where we start adding squash and stretch to the body. We start adding extra little details to make this motion that's overall pretty good and really make it sing. So yeah, that's going to be the next step. Unfortunately, I probably won't have time to do that today. Let's see. Today is officially the first day. 70 degrees outside. Nice. That's beautiful. We just started getting over 32 degrees here yesterday. And it's been nice. The snow melted a lot. I can actually see out my window. It's the first time since November, I think it is, that I'm able to see outside my window. So nice. Yay. Now, quick question. Does post and pre-infinity change when you move your keyframes? Yes, it does. So pre and post infinity will basically make an infinity curve from your first key to your last key. So what this means is that if I change any of my keys here, every key in that cycle will change as well. So you can see, whoop, 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 whoop. Now, what that also means is if I retime my curve and move it forward or back, that whole curve is calculated based on the first key on this curve and the last key on this curve. So if I move this around, I'm moving the whole thing and the whole thing slides across because it's just calculating from this section. It's not calculating from frame 1 to frame whatever. It's just first key to last key, regardless of where they are on the timeline. So this is very nice because you can just take your whole curve, if you had a cycle, and just kind of nudge it back and forth to kind of create an offset. And it doesn't matter whether you go forward or back, it all works out. Very nice. And how do you transform the infinity to actual keys after you finish? So you can do that. So what you would do is take your curve here. Let me save again just to make sure. And let's say I want to bake this cycle here into full keys. So I just have full control over it. To do that, there's two ways you can do it. You can go to Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation. Bake Simulation will take any animation or any motion that is created through non-keyed method, constraints, infinity keys, anything that is like movement, but you can see there's no keyframes, and it turns it into keyframe animation. Or in the graph editor, you can go to, I believe it's under keys. I never go in here. Keys, no. Curves. Edit. It's in here somewhere. There's a bake keys option here. But I always just use the bake simulation. It's the same thing. I feel like it should be under edit. I'm probably just being blind. Swap buffer, change rotation, no. Resample, no. Yeah, bake channel right here. So that could work, but honestly, I just go to Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation, and you can do a couple of bakes. You can do a Smart Bake, which will put keys where it thinks it needs them, or a Sample Bake, which will put a key every, in this case, 1 frame. Let's just do a Smart Bake here and apply that. It'll go through, and then for that range, I now have keys for the whole thing. And they should have done all the curves right there. So now I have keyframe animation for this whole section without having to animate that whole section. This is very good for starting with a cycle and then using it to build into something new. So yeah, Bake Simulation. It's a great tool.